Chapter 9. The Night the City Changed. The integration centers opened at dusk. Kess stood at the entrance to the one in District 7 and watched people arrive the way people arrived at things they weren't sure about. Slowly, in pairs, stopping at the threshold to look inside before committing to a step. Some came because their air recycler had been failing for months and they'd heard what happened in District 12. Some came because they were afraid of what happened if they didn't. Piria stood inside the center and met each person at the door. She didn't reach for anyone's hands, didn't ask whether they had questions, didn't say a word to draw them in. She let them look at her, at what 8 generations of integration actually looked like on a person's skin for as long as they needed. Some stepped inside, some didn't. Kess noticed one more thing. Piria was also, quietly, watching the people who had already integrated and returned. Watching the way they moved. The way they spoke to each other. Whether the synchronized behavior from the atmospheric plant had followed them home. Within a few hours, the number was over 100. Engineering departments across the fleet were responding to Torn's transmission. Chief engineers across the fleet were suddenly in conversation with each other and with Vira. Each had been quietly tracking their own suppressed numbers for years. Thane did not staff an integration center. Kess found him on an observation platform on the Driftspires' outer hull. Standing in the cold altitude wind with his transformed eyes tracking something in the darkness below. "Something happened on the way here," he said, before she could speak. "A security patrol. Corridor junction on level 8. "Did they see you?" Kess asked. "No. My blood sense mapped them before they turned the corner. I knew exactly where they were, how fast they were moving, which direction they'd go next." He paused. "And I knew how to take them down, all 3, silently. The knowledge was just there, whole and certain, nothing like a plan." He turned to look at her. "My training gives me options. This didn't, like breathing." Kess didn't ask. "No," he said. "I stood still and let them pass. Took me 3 times as long to get here." He was quiet for a moment. "I've never been afraid of my own competence before." Kess stood beside him without speaking. 43 years old, he said eventually. He let that sit before he went on. 15 years since the mission went wrong. Some days my blood sense still finds where they'd be standing, and there's nothing there. And now? Now I don't know how old I am, he said. The team, in the Corps' memory. They weren't all at peace. No. Mira was glad I was there. She wasn't angry. But she was angry at the planet. At what it did to us without asking. He paused. The Corps didn't volunteer that information. I had to find it. Kess held his gaze. I know. That's the thing that keeps me honest, he said. Mira's anger, not the relief, not the forgiveness. Because she's right. Whatever this is, it came for us. We didn't ask for it. The planet didn't ask permission to change us any more than a storm asks permission to rain. He looked at the stars. I'm still in. The math is the math. But I want you to know that I'm in with my eyes open. And I want you to know that if the network ever gives me a certainty that feels like breathing, I'm gonna hold still and let it pass. Even if it takes 3 times as long. Below them, the city breathed. The wind carried the faint harmonics of the taint far below. The stars were the same stars they had always been. Indifferent and beautiful and very far away. Kess found Vira not in the technical channel room, but on a maintenance gantry overlooking the Dawn Forge array. She was sitting with her back against a support strut, scanner dark in her lap, hands flat on the metal walkway, not interfacing with any system, just sitting there. I can hear them, Vira said, without opening her eyes. Every crystal in the array. They're not just degrading. They're remembering what they were made for. Her voice was stripped of its usual precision. A roar note ran underneath it. Before the dawn forges were power generators, they were instruments. The first city used them for the first songs, for the original attempt at conversation with the planet. Kess sat down beside her. I spent years being an engineer, Vira said, fixing things, understanding how things worked so I could keep them running a little longer. Now I can hear what these crystals were supposed to be doing. And it wasn't this. She opened her eyes. They were wet. It's like spending your whole life repairing an instrument and then hearing someone actually play it. Are you all right? Kess asked. I'm heartbroken for them, for the crystals. That sounds insane. It doesn't sound insane. They've been screaming for 300 years. We've read it as power output fluctuations. Vira laughed once, short. I wrote my thesis on power output fluctuations. A conduit 2 meters down the gantry cracked with a sound like ice giving way, arcing blue-white against the dark. Vira was moving before Kess had finished flinching, both hands flat against the casing, forcing the current back into its channel, her jaw tight, her breath catching in a way the physical effort alone didn't explain. The arc guttered and died. She sat back down hard, breathing fast, a fresh burn already rising red across her palm. That one's been dying for a while, she said, like it was nothing, and did not look at her hand again. She was quiet for a moment. And I noticed something about Torn today. I noticed it too. He's better. At everything. More coherent, more persuasive, more productive. That dry edge he used to have is gone. I can't place when it left. Vira looked at her hands, the burned one and the unburned one. I keep checking whether I'm the same. Whether I've lost edges I can't see anymore because I've lost the edges that would notice. What do you find? I find that I can't tell. Which is exactly the answer that would be true whether I've changed or not. She picked up her scanner and held it without turning it on. Marsh was right about Torn. That's the thing nobody said out loud in the council session. Marsh was right. They sat together on the gantry with the Dawn Forge array humming its tired hum below them. After a while, Vira went back to the technical channel. The precision returned to her voice. She kept her burned hand curled loosely at her side, though, and rested only the other one flat against the walkway. Sarah found Kess at midnight outside the District 9 Integration Center. She had been running relay for 3 integration centers since dusk, network threaded into every channel at once in a way that still looked, from the outside, like a young woman standing very still with her eyes half closed. Marsh moved, she said, upper districts, private channels, broadcasting for hours. Framing it as contamination spread, she paused. And he's in contact with Torres. Has been since before the council session. Marsh had asked the sharpest questions in that room. He had also already picked his side before he asked them. Kess didn't know which version of him to believe and didn't have time to find out. Torres isn't coming to assess, Kess said. No. And Brass? Kess asked. Sarah hesitated. Went dark. All channels, all at once. Not a gradual failure. Torres already had a frigate in position before the blackout started. Not a response. Already there, waiting. Kess had done the arithmetic on District 12 without thinking twice. 12,000 people, 6 hours of air, and it had felt like the largest number she could hold in her chest at one time. Brass was 60,000, and there was no plant to run to this time. No failing system she could put her hands on and force back into its channel. Just silence where a city used to be and someone else's hand already on the switch. How long can they hold air without the relay? Kess asked. I don't know. Nobody's ever gone dark on purpose before. Sarah's words came out faster than her usual flat, efficient cadence, tumbling ahead of themselves. That's not a communications failure, Kess. That's a decision. Tomorrow morning, it turned out, was closer than anyone had planned for. Kess found Volk and Hadrian in the command center. Volk was standing. Hadrian was sitting with the deliberate stillness of a man conserving energy. Brass, Kess said. We know, Volk said. Torres has a frigate there. The blackout is containment. 60,000 people, Hadrian said quietly, just as a number that needed to be in the room. Torres arrives in 6 hours, Volk said. Dawn. The integration centers stay open through the night, Kess said. And someone needs to talk to Brass. Hadrian rose from his chair slowly. I'll go to the upper districts. Marsh is my colleague. I know his arguments. He looked at Kess. I can't promise they'll listen. But Marsh won't be the only voice they hear tonight. He laughed, already composing what he would say to men and women who had known him for decades and trusted him for exactly as long. Kess stood in the command center with the 6 hours and the knowledge that Dawn was bringing someone new. That someone was carrying orders that predated everything they had accomplished tonight. The night was not over. She went back to work.
Chapter Guild, Stories for Your Mind.